This is the Average Guy Network, and you have found Home Gadget Geeks, show number 567, with guest Mike Wieger, recorded on March 23rd, 2023. Here on Home Gadget Geeks, we cover all the favorite tech gadgets that find their way into your home. News reviews, product updates, and conversation, all for the average tech guy. I'm your host, Jim Collison, broadcasting live from beautiful Bellevue, Nebraska. Of course, we post the show. We'll have a few show notes out there. We'll post those out at theaverageguy.tv. Don't forget, this episode's sponsor is Nespresso. Mike, I've been doing some affiliate sponsors, and I thought, why not do Nespresso? Great coffee. You don't have to compromise. You can make it fast. It doesn't have to be Keurig. You can land what I'd say is right in the middle. Like Nespresso gets you right in the middle. If you use the code MQU328, you get $40 off your first machine if you want to give it a try. They even send you a little carrier for it as well.
Do they have a code for reorders of coffee? Because I didn't know you had a code. Okay, because I'm a big Nespresso guy, but I don't use anyone's link, so I would be okay.
No, I wish maybe at some point. This is MQU328, $40 off a machine. If you don't have a machine, they'll send you a little holder for them as well with that. I'll keep working on them. I thought I'd give it a try. I did have one person use the code, and so if you're tired of drinking terrible coffee, it makes really good
coffee.
Yeah, you start drinking espresso, and then you go to like Starbucks or whatever, and you're like, where's the crema? Where's like
it's got that cream on top. It's like a head on a beer, right? It's so good.
Yeah. Super good. We got Mark's schedule too coming up for the barbecue show. We've also been I've also got a meter link. If you head out to theaverageguy.tv/meter, they got some deals. They're running some deals for the spring. If you haven't picked up your temperature, if you haven't picked up a thermometer, right, a temperature sensor for both ambient and inside the meat, whatever you're using, now would be the time. Check it out. Theaverageguy.tv/meter. Big thanks to Kevin Schoonover, who joined last week. We did some PC builds of his. He's doing an AMD and an Intel box. And actually, he got mentioned on Think Computers a podcast last night because they were covering those Intel GPUs. And maybe I'll ask you a little bit later, Mike, if you've been enticed at all by any of the latest GPU saga. But Kevin, thanks for coming on last week. And of course, big thanks to our Patreon subscribers. If you're finding value in the podcast, and you want to give back, join the team, theaverageguy.tv/Patreon. We'll get you there. We just have one plan. We keep it easy. Give it a look today. Mike Wieger is back for the week. Mike, last time I said you were back, they thought back.
Oh, do they really?
Yeah.
The very next week, they're like, man, he's already gone again?
Welcome back.
Thank you. Good to be back. I was saying in the pre-show, this feels like home. I love it. I love being able to come back and be on the show. And I know I was waiting. Actually, we get the boys new baseball schedule and on I think Saturday. And so I was like, man, if some of my Thursdays free up, especially around the summertime, I'd love to come back more.
Yeah. And shoot me a note. Like if you see them, let's get them booked.
Yeah,
so that I can get them. I mentioned Mark Robson, where we've already got him lined up, starting to think about, it's going to be summer before out on the deck.
Yeah,
going for walks. Have you picked up? You said in the pre-show when you and I were talking that you've been trying to get the kids out and doing a little more golf.
Yeah.
Did you? Or now, see, golf's dangerous because it's clubs first. Accessories and bag accessories.
Yep.
And distance accessories. Right. You said you picked up a golf gadget. What'd you pick up?
I did. So for me, golf was something I played on the high school team. I was big into golf as a kid. My grandpa really got me into it and played a bunch with him. And so as I grew older, though, like when I got to college, I played maybe once a year. And so it was really all the way up until last year. I just got started doing it with more work people. Got the bug again. I said, golf is just something I love. Like it's just getting outside. I forgot how much I love golf. And so looking into this year, we were talking about all different things, and really it was, I really wanted to get the boys. My boys are 5 and 6 now. They're just getting to that good age where they have good enough hand-eye coordination, not to have a perfect swing, but they can have fun with it. So yeah, got them out, which has been a blast. So we're gonna be playing a lot more golf with them. And so what that led to though was that I was using the same clubs I had since high school. 13, 14 years old, and those technologies come a long way with irons. So I was playing with a bunch of buddies last year, and they were like, how are you even hitting it with that thing? Like, like, here, try this. And I was getting 30, 40 more yards with their irons. So invested in some new irons this year. And what came with it was a little sticker. And it was like, hey, you can get, free, they're called Arccos sensors. So ARCCOS, they're called Arccos. It's the Arccos system. And so like, hey, you can get the sensors for free. And I don't know what sort of value that is. What I realized after is that I think Arccos is doing a big push, especially right before springtime. If you guys want to try this out after I tell you about it, just Google like Arccos free sensors. There's even links that if you just say, "Oh yeah, I bought a new set of clubs," they don't like require a receipt or anything. They just ship you the sensors for free. Yeah, so looks like they're running a deal right now where you can buy the starter bundle, get a few sensors. But essentially, so I pulled the trigger, right? I'm like, well, okay, they're going to ship me all the sensors for free. What this system is it's essentially a way for you to track your distances. I will be clear, not at the range. This has to be when you're playing an actual round of golf, and that'll make sense here in a second. But for when you're playing a round of golf, automatically, without you really having to do anything with an app, you do have to be running an app, but you don't have to be pulling your phone out. You don't have to be doing anything. This system knows exactly what club you're using when you hit your shot. And then because you go from shot one and then you walk to shot two, and that's where you hit the next shot, it knows your distances. And so what it's doing in the background is it's tracking all the clubs you're using, the distances those clubs are going, and it's GPS based. So it's also automatically tracking, are you hitting the fairway? Are you getting your fairways in regulation? Are you hitting your greens in regulation? Like, are you hitting to the left? Are you hitting to the right? And what I love about it is this technology isn't necessarily new, but in the past, you had to manually track that in an app. So like after you hit your shot, you say, I hit driver, I just hit it 200 yards, I hit it to the left. I'm playing golf to be outside and to be kind of tech free. And what I loved about this system was it's as tech free as it can be and still getting all that really cool data. So what I will say is there's a few different ways you can do this. So the sensors, you need the sensors, and they screw onto the end of your grip. I think they work with almost every single grip, with the exception of your putter. You might need a special adapter for your putter. But for me, it just screws onto that tiny little hole you see on the end of your grip. So the sensors are on. There's a couple different ways you can play. So what you can do is, if you don't want to spend any extra money, so for me, like I got the sensors for free. If I didn't want to spend any more money, you can just use your phone, because the sensor is telling it what club, but then it needs some sort of like microphone to listen for when you're hitting a shot, right? That way it knows, when am I actually hitting a shot? So it's using the microphone, and it needs a GPS device. So your phone is the GPS and the mic. So if you don't want to spend more money, you fire up the app. You have to keep it in your front left pocket. And this might come up later, but my phone is massive. I made a mistake. I went way too big. I went the Pro Max. I don't want this thing in my pocket all the time, but that is an option. So you can just use your phone, keep it in your pocket. It's tracking everything. The only time really you have to interact with the app is if you hit like a shot out of bounds. It's not going to know about that. So if you have to take a penalty stroke, because it's keeping your full scorecard for you. So if you have to take a penalty stroke, and let's say, all of us, you're 10 feet out, you putt it, you're within an inch, you just pick the ball up, you don't actually finish out that last inch putt, it's not going to hear the putt sound. So you might have to go in and say, oh, I actually two putted that instead of one putt. So that's the only time you have to interact with the app. So that's option one. You can play with your phone. Option two, which they actually just released a major new update that I wish they had done before I bought the system. They made a major new update so that everything can run through your watch. So you can actually just start around and do everything from your watch. Now, when you're using your phone previously, it would still interact with your watch. So your watch is now your rangefinder. So as you're hitting shots, you can still look down and it's telling you exactly how far you are from the pin, from the green. But you couldn't do everything just with the watch alone. You still had to have your phone in your pocket. Now you can do everything. If you have an Apple Watch, you can run it all through the watch, which I think is really cool. I'm going to actually test that out. So that's option two. What I went with before they made that update where you could do everything on the watch was they have this little thing called a link, and it just clips onto, the Arccos link. And this, don't pay the full price ever. I think it's $150 MSRP. They are always doing deals. So even when I did it, I got this for, I think, $75. The link is really cool. So the link essentially makes it so you could leave your phone in your truck. And this thing has GPS built in. It's really tiny. It actually looks bigger in the pictures than it is. It is essentially the length of your belt. You clip it on your belt or on your pocket. This thing has the microphone in it, so it's listening. It also has GPS in it. So you can start a round from your phone and then leave your phone because the link is doing everything for you. So I actually, what I did with the link was I did keep my phone in the cart because I did need to add in those putts and I wanted to do it in real time. I didn't want to have to write it down and do it later. So if I had an extra putt or if I had a penalty stroke, I would just pick up my phone out of the cart, add it real quick and set it down. So it's interacting with your phone. But the good thing about this is it eliminates the need to have your phone in your pocket. So the analytics you get from this is actually the really cool part. So that's the system. I've only because I just got it. I've only been able to play with it once. The more rounds you do, obviously, the better the analytics get because it starts to know your average distance per club. It starts to know, it'll tell you where you're losing and gaining strokes. They're like, hey, your approach game is costing you a lot of strokes, right? You're constantly hitting 2 right around the green. On certain holes you're hitting the fairways or you're pulling it a little bit left. Well, as you start to get, I think there's a minimum of once you get 90 holes in with the system, it has what's called an AI caddy. So the AI caddy will almost treat it like you have a caddy with you. It knows your distances, it knows your tendencies on left and right, so it'll kind of tell you how you should play a hole. So it'd say, there's a bunker out there that's 180. You very rarely carry that with X club, so I would play this club to here, and go in. So the analytics is just, I think, fascinating. I'm a big just data nerd. Anything I can get data on, I love. And what I like about it, like I said, going back to my first comment, is you get all that data without having to interact with your phone, like pretty much at all during the round, right? And especially with the update to the watch, you can add in those putts and extra putts and like penalty strokes on your watch. So really, you could have a phone-free round, tech-free round. You still get to enjoy golf and have the benefit of having all the data afterwards. If you are a GIN user, like if you're a handicap tracker, Acros, so at the very end of your round, it can actually just publish it to your handicap profile for you. So it can submit those scores automatically, which is really nice. Saves you a step from having to open the GIN app and plug in your score for the handicap. So, it's just one of those items that I really like. I think for the yearly fee, it's $150. So $150 a year. I think they do it monthly too. I can't remember what I signed up for. So I'm either getting charged for a full week because they give you a month for free. So at the end of this month, I'll get a charge for either 150 for the year or they might be monthly. I don't know. But I thought this was really cool. This is where like I said, we've had this tech forever in golf, but it was so much interaction that was required. Now it's a lot easier.
Making it a lot easier, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, it just kind of tracks it. I love the listening for the sound of the shot. Would somebody else's shot throw that off?
No, not too much because it needs to have, now it's a pretty sensitive microphone. And so really you need to have the club really close to your sensor so it knows what club you have. And then it's listening for a pretty loud shot that's pretty close to you. So I didn't have any instances of it picking up someone else's shot. And it's kind of interesting. So those sensors are, I don't know what kind of technology they have in them, but they're running on battery. Well, it's actually position based. So when they're facing down, meaning like think about if a club's upside down your golf bag, they're off. As soon as it's flipped upside down and right side up, so now you're holding it, that's when the sensor starts to activate. So they're using a bunch of really cool tech. I also didn't have any like misreads on what club I was using. So obviously when you initially pair them, you just put them on all your clubs, you hold it close to your phone, you say, this is my pitching wedge, this is my driver. And it just goes. And I really like it. It's a pretty cool, and you can get the sensors. You can also just get custom grips. I think they were showing that there. So if you wanted to go all out and get all new grips, if you're in the market for new grips anyway, you could just go the all-in-one route and get the grips built in.
Wow. Have you seen a lot of golfers using this when you're out golfing?
No, not really. I saw it from some of the YouTubers I was watching, and there was one other guy at the club I just joined who I was talking. He's like, dude, I just picked those up too. So I think they were kind of new the past few years, and now they're starting to become a little bit more mainstream. So I think you're going to probably start seeing it a little bit more. And Brian asked in chat if there's a social aspect to it. That is a great question. I actually don't know. My brother-in-law did get them as well. So because that link, like I said, it was kind of an unrestricted link. It was like, oh, hey, you bought new clubs. Sweet. Here, we're going to ship you sensors. So I was like, dude, put this link in your phone. See if it still works. He's like, yep, lets me get the sensors for free. So he grabbed them too. So I'll follow up on that. I'm not sure if you can look at it. I guess I could open up the app and see if there's a way to see friends.
If not, I'm sure it's coming. Although,
Yeah.
as soon as you get other people involved, they just ruin it. You know?
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
it's a lot like, we were kicking off the show talking about whiskey, and bourbon and whiskeys are so popular right now. There's all these podcasters and bloggers and YouTubers talking about whiskey, and you start watching some of these after a while, and then you're like, you're just making up stuff now. Like, there's only so many things you can do with whiskey, right?
Yeah.
And eventually you're like, oh, you're just making stuff up. So, I don't know. I always get a little skeptical after a while. The trend, in fact, the more popular the trend gets, the less I want to do it. When everybody's doing it, I'm like, don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Has it? So how many games have you played with it
I've only
so
played
far?
one round so
Okay.
far. So Pacific Springs around here opened up a little early, and the rest of the courses are opening up next weekend.
Can you
So,
tell it what course you're on?
yep.
Okay. So
Because that's how
they've
it knows the GPS. It knows it's pretty much being your little caddy. So even when you're looking at your watch, it's telling you how far away you are. So you tell it what course you're playing, the front nine, the
yeah.
back nine, and it loads in all that data.
Yeah. It'd be nice if they had that for disc golf, like something you'd put on your discs, and it'd be weird for the balance and some other things like that. But it'd be some of the technology around that would be cool if they could automatically track some of that.
Well, and it would be, yeah, really, you would probably need a manual way of saying what disc you're throwing. But like the UDisc app for disc golf, I don't know if you've used that at all. So I play disc golf a lot with my brother-in-law. The UDisc app is fantastic. So that's the same sort of thing. You pull in the course and you tell what course you're playing. It has I don't know if, can't remember if it has GPS, like where it shows you the hole. I'd have to go back and look, but it's great for scorekeeping. You can
Yeah.
scorekeep amongst your
Yeah.
friends
Yeah.
and keep track that way.
Well, and you think about it, you could say, okay, here's the pin, throw it, walk to it, and then say, okay, this is where it's landed, and then it would have that distance. You could track it by disc if you wanted to at that point. It's a lot of manual entry on the phone.
Yes.
That's the problem, right?
That's what this solved. That's why
Yeah,
this was such
yeah,
a game changer for the
yeah.
tech side.
Makes me wonder why nobody thought of it before. Maybe it's
I
just
know.
the tech met the opportunity, and right?
Yeah, and I think it is a little bit niche because the big explosion in golf, like the true tech story in golf, is launch monitors right now, right? That's like the TrackMan systems. You can build your own sim in your garage, and those are becoming more affordable and even more portable. People are taking those to the range. The downside of the system is it doesn't help at the range, right? Because it's using GPS to know where you hit from, to know the distance. So it's of no use at the range. So I think like most people are focused in right now on their practice side. So they're using the TrackMan systems or any of those other launch monitors. And I think that's been the story. I do think these will start to get more traction as people start to get used to seeing analytics when they're in their sim or they're on the range. They're going to want that same sort of tracking out on the course without the manual entry. And I think that's where this will start to pick up a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. No, that's super cool. That's one of those systems that kind of comes on the scene. It's cool, not guaranteed to be successful. I think they've got a lot of work to do to get golfers to adopt it, right? Get it rolling that way. But it does seem like it's all the right technology for what it's doing. It's not too much tech, but it's got a lot of tech built into it. You've got some options with it, right?
Yeah, and I think for them, the best part is I think they were able to ride and maybe weather a storm early on of trying to break into the scene because actually I have one on my desk. Here, here's the sensor. This is all they're producing, right? A little sensor. And they're producing so it's just the size of the top of your club. You would peel the sticker off. Oh, you can see the electronics. But here I have another one right here. But so the screw, you screw that into the top of your grip, and then the green and black just sticks up beyond the length of your club.
Yeah.
So this is all they're making. So it can't be too expensive. And they're making that link. The rest of the rest is tech, right? The rest of the app. So ideally, hopefully their costs weren't too high to get things produced. Gave them enough time because I'm more than willing to pay $150 a year for the data.
Yeah, that's super reasonable.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean,
That,
especially in the golf world, right?
Right.
I think people are willing to pay that. I mean, you're paying a lot more for your membership to your club than you are.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, Jay says the analytics would be cool, and that is, that's what you're getting from them, right? No.
Well, yeah, cool. Exactly.
Well, how's it going golfing with the kids? Like, how old? Harrison's how old now?
Yeah, Harrison's 5, so he's
Yeah.
going to kindergarten in the fall. So we are celebrating. This May is our last daycare bill, and we are just beyond pumped for
Mm,
that. So that's like
mm.
getting a raise. So that's a pretty big moment.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
his older brother Emmett is 6, and he's in kindergarten this year. So they're always one grade apart. And this year has been a struggle because it's been the first time they haven't been in the same school. Because my kids, before it's a daycare, but it's a Montessori school, so they've been in the Montessori school environment, and they were always together, and they were in the same class. So this is the first year they're in different schools. One of them's in the big public school with all the big kids, and so they're really excited for next year to kind of be back in the same groove and be back
Yeah.
together.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if you can golf with them, I mean,
Oh well, to me it's like, well, Hannah's all for it too, because
yeah.
Hannah's like, oh, you're gonna go. I'm like, yeah, I'll take care of the kids today. I'll take care
Yeah.
of the boys. So
Yeah.
I'm loving this age as they're getting older because it's starting to become a lot more fun, right? This is where
Yeah.
dads shine. Like dads really
Yeah.
start to shine when they get a little bit older. Baby phase, we're just kind of useless, to be honest, right? We don't have the right
Yeah.
parts, and we're not. It's not our core competency for most of us. So this is really starting to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. That's good. No, good for you. Yeah, I don't know if I did those years very well. I was working a lot. I was busy. I didn't have a lot of things in common. I tried rollerblading. We went through a whole rollerblade phase with the kids. I jumped off a ramp and just smashed my rollerblades. It's like, hey, fat guy, you probably should get some better rollerblades, right?
On
And
that note, there will be a certain contingent of our audience that will know the reference, but I just added Rocket Power, the old Nickelodeon show, Rocket Power to Plex, because I loved that show growing up. It's all about kids in California rollerblading, skateboarding. Well, I downloaded it because I knew my boys would love it, and now all they've been asking for is a skateboard. We want skateboards, we want rollerblades, and Hannah's like, it's because of that
yeah,
show you put on Plex, and I
yeah,
was like, yep. But it's that
mhm,
show for me I was like, I did the same thing. First thing I
yeah.
went to ask my mom for was a skateboard after I watched that show.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Well, I knew you were coming on the show, so I thought, okay, I gotta ask Mike because I've made some of my best purchases when you've been on the show.
Or worse, maybe.
I don't know. Can you think of a bad purchase that I've made that you recommended?
I was trying to think about that. I don't
This is
think so because you haven't regretted your Mac choice, right? Going with the
oh,
M1,
not
like,
nope, nope.
yeah.
In fact, a buddy of mine was saying, "Hey, I was thinking of buying a Mac," and I was like, "Okay, you just get the latest Mac Mini, right? Get a really nice monitor." He was buying it for his partner, and so he was like, I'm like, "Okay, just get a Mac Mini, biggest monitor you can afford, and just let it go. It'll do its thing. Just let it go. It'll be fine." And fairly inexpensive. So yeah, I'm a good now, I mean, at the same time, I built a new Windows PC back in the winter, right? So like I'm not giving up on either. I need both. I need
Yep,
both
I'm the same
ecosystems
way.
to be working.
I
But
need both.
iPhone 12, I'm at the end of my 2 year, and the sweet spot to sometimes to trade these things in. It seems like COVID messed up the whole phone trade in thing. I don't know. I'm not seeing as good of deals. But do you think, with what you know, would it be wise for me to start looking on offloading the 12 and picking up a 14? Should I be waiting for the next thing? I don't know. What are your, from a phone perspective, what are your thoughts?
So it's a really good question. So for context, I upgraded this last refresh. So I have the iPhone 14 Pro Max, and now they have so many options, right? On your iPhone 14s, you have your iPhone 14, you have your iPhone 14 Pro, you have your iPhone 14 Pro Max. Um, you gave me a little bit of heads up on this, and I'm glad you did because I was trying to remember. I went back, and Apple has that really cool tool where you can just go compare the generations of phones, right? So I was kind of looking at, okay, I gotta remind myself, like, what is the 12 compared to where the Pro's at and where the Pro Max is? For me, I was actually disappointed because I needed a new phone. My phone was really old, and so I had to pull the trigger. I don't know when. I wish we knew, and maybe this is a point where you wait till the summer till they announce. I wish they would just update the iPhone to be a USB-C charging port. Like that is the one thing that is so frustrating about the iPhone is that even though I have the latest one and they've put USB-C in the iPads, they have not brought it to iPhone yet. And it's one extra freaking cord I always have to pack, right? And it's one extra thing that I have to pack. And even for my car, because my car is not wireless CarPlay, it's wired, so like I have a different cord there. So that would be my only thing right now. Is just the thing that jumped out to me was, ooh, well, I was waiting for USB-C. Maybe it might be worth it to see in the summer if the new one coming out in October is going to have USB-C. Besides that, to be totally frank, the iPhone really 12 to now, there hasn't been too much like, oh man, you really need this feature, right? This is missing. You're missing this. The camera is way better. They haven't really had one of those. So I am expecting the 15 to be hopefully something a little more generational. I don't know. Oh, and Alex brings up a good point. Alex says that this year the USB-C is expected due to European regulations. I would hope so. And you kind of referred to as they're kind of mandating everyone kind of standardizes on USB-C. And I think that was one of the reasons they started to put it in the iPads because they kind of saw the writing on the wall. So hopefully they do. I think Apple was trying to see if MagSafe would catch on. That was the one because iPhone 12 does not have MagSafe, right? Or does it?
No, it
on
does.
The back? It does.
It does.
Yeah.
That
has not. I thought I was going to be a huge fan of it. I haven't used it once. I used to use. Actually, I take that back. I have started using the battery pack. The battery pack that they sell that you just slap on the back of your phone and magnets to it is super, super convenient. So I have used the battery pack, and actually my wife uses it more than me. I got it as a gift and I was really excited, and then it lives in her purse because she's always on 15% battery power.
Yeah.
But that is nice. So I think Apple was trying to go that route and see if that would win, and it just hasn't. So for you though, I think, the biggest thing would be obviously a big step up. And if you're looking for, I don't know how much you use the camera. Do you use the camera a lot on your iPhone?
No, not a lot.
Okay.
Not a lot, just to be honest. I mean, for things, here and there and the grandkids from time to time, but I'm not a big photographer.
Yeah. So if that's the case, I don't see, when you're looking at, so if you're looking at the 14 lineup, the Pro might not be super attractive to you at that point then, right? Because, they really, the difference between the Pro and the iPhone 14 is just a much it's like a 48 megapixel main camera as compared to like a 12, I believe, on the other one, an extra camera. But I will say on the Pro, if you are looking at two things, the other main difference is there's kind of two bigger ones. One is an always on display. So as I'm looking down at my phone right now, it's dimmed, but it is always on. I am up and down on whether I like it. And I've had the phone since it just came out in October. So I've had it for a while. It distracts me more, right? Because I can see notifications that will show up there. Even though I have certain notifications muted on my watch, I'll kind of see them and they distract me. But it is nice from like, I do see notifications. So if something does come in that I want to see, or always seeing the time is kind of nice. But I will say it's caused more trouble. I've actually thought about looking into just turning it off because even though it's so like right now, I just picked it up, so it kind of lit up, but like it's on, it just kind of got brighter. But this is at the state of it. So when you pull it, if it's in your pocket and this front sensors plug are covered up, I think it turns off. I'm not exactly sure. I think it dims, and I think because I've seen it like when it's in my pocket, I think it after a while, there it goes.
Oh, there it goes.
So if it's in your pocket, right, it's going to turn off. But as soon as you pull it out, right, so there it turns back on. I have, as I've been pulling it out, like when I get out of my car, right, I've got everything in my hand, I'm going into work. It's very easy to just like hold on to a notification. Well, that's active now. So instead of having to wake your screen, so I find myself when I'm holding my phone like with my palm and I'm taking it out, I'm accidentally hitting stuff. So that feature it is a feature and a bug, I would actually call it. You might like it, you might not. The other item that I do like is I didn't know if it was going to be gimmicky. I thought it was super gimmicky when I saw it. So my things were switched. I thought I would love the always on display. I'm kind of not liking it as much. I thought the island up top, so this cutout now, right, is actually on the Pro and above. So not the regular 14. They have the island. The island is actually super useful. So that island, when you're using certain apps, or if I'm doing anything on my phone, but let's say I'm listening to a podcast, there's just a tiny little icon of the podcast right here, and you can tap it and it'll take you to like what you're listening to. Right. Or for example, if I use my phone for tethering in the car for the boys for their iPads, that shows a little tiny blue icon where you can click it and turn it off. Like, so it does make certain things very useful. Also, if you're on a phone call and then you swipe away and you're doing something while you're on the call, that call is showing up in that island. So you can quickly get back to it. So I thought the island was going to be gimmicky. I actually really like it. And that is on the Pro and above. So not on the 14. Yeah. So in kind of, when I was looking at it, I was like, if the 12 is working for you, because obviously everyone runs into the battery issue when you get onto an old phone. If you're still having decent battery life, I might wait for the next one. Like there's nothing there that I'm like, oh, you for sure got to do it. And then if you do go 14, the question between the Pro and the regular would be, do you want the island? Do you want the always on display? Do you care about the camera? What I will say is I would avoid, and especially for you, because I know you, avoid the Max. Like I went iPhone 14 Pro Max. It is way, way too big. I hate it. It's way too big in my pocket. I thought about turning it right around and returning it when I got it, because it was one of those I pre-ordered. I was really excited. I pre-ordered before, hadn't seen it in person. For me, at least, it's way, way, way too big. I'm kind of starting to go towards the trend that everyone, all my friends, you included, I think, like smaller the better. So the
I like
Pro,
the size. Oh, this is a good
yeah,
size.
and that's the
This is
same
a good
exact
size.
size as the 14 and
Right.
the 14 Pro. So
Right.
the Pro and the 14, same size.
Right.
They just add a bigger one for the Max.
Well, I'm trying to figure out that sweet spot for trade-in as well. So what will be the max value on the trade-in versus what the price is going to be on that, and kind of think through. I don't, and you mentioned battery, of course. I mean, I actually get really great battery. One of the things I've learned over the last 2 purchases is buy all the accessories you think you're going to need right away. Don't wait, just buy them all,
Yeah.
because you know, chances are they're not going to make it to the next generation or whatever, or and you're like, oh, I just bought this and now I'm already, now I got to get rid of it. So if it goes, listen, lightning isn't actually a problem for me. Like I never, I'm going to talk a little bit about this camera, this camera adapter that I've had forever and used on a couple phones. It's gotten really useful for me right now, which is crazy. Now, I know they'll make a USB-C one. I get that, right?
Yeah.
But I've never seen the lightning as a problem. I know,
Okay.
yeah, I gotta buy 'em, okay, cables are cheap. It's fine, right?
Yeah.
It's fine. I've got cameras in my nightstand. I'm the cameras. I've got cables, cords at my nightstand. I got them down here. I have them in my car. I have them at work. Like I just bought a bunch. You just put them everywhere.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's good to go. Yeah, so I was mainly kind of thinking like from a functionality standpoint, topic we're going to talk here at the end of the show may use that neural processor that's in there, that it's available in the 13 and the 14, but not in the 12.
Okay.
And you kind of go, oh, okay, well, there's some things that I actually use that I'm going to be using for work that I thought, okay, maybe the upgraded processor actually would benefit me on
Yeah.
that, on that. So I knew you were coming on, so I was like, "Well, I'll talk to Mike about it." Is now, I think what it means is I need to do a bunch of research right now, check prices, check trade in, and then think, okay, what is waiting 6 months going to mean? Probably not a lot, just to be honest.
Yeah.
And if we get there and it's not what I want, I could always probably just pick up a cheap not cheap. They're never cheap, but pick up a 14 right on the way
Yeah.
out, so to speak. I don't know.
And I don't know what it was with like Verizon specifically, but I'm paying almost nothing for this phone. Like they were doing, and
Yeah,
not even like trade in,
yeah,
right? Like
yeah,
take out trade in, just like their deals on getting a new phone.
yeah.
I mean, I think I'm paying $10 a month after everything is all said and done for the iPhone 14 Pro Max. Like that's why honestly I went with the Max, because when I was pre-ordering, it was like for $2 more a month you can get the Max. I'm like, shoot, I'm only like, and the deals were so crazy. I was like, yeah, sure. Like $2 more a month.
Well,
Like, let's
that's
go
what I'm
Max.
waiting for. There's been a Sprint, T-Mobile merger in all this since I bought the phone, and so I'm still on a Sprint account. They haven't combined the two entities yet financially. They're getting closer, but I'm still on an old Sprint account, but my modem, which is T-Mobile, is on a separate, it's not me, it's on Sarah's account on T-Mobile, which I thought my phone was up. Well, it's the guy explained to me, well, it's T-Mobile. It's just still Sprint billing.
Yeah.
Oh, oh, I gotcha. Um, so I need to kind of look. Does it make sense to try and, are there going to be some options? Am I going to need to move off my Sprint billing? Sammy is picking up. This is the last time she'll get. I'm paying for her phone. The last one I just bought. So I told her, the one you have in your hand, this is it. Like,
Yeah.
you buy the next one. And I'm done buying phones for kids, by the way. That's a great feeling. I'm going to pay off their college bill and get rid of the phone all at the same time.
Oh, great. So I'm getting rid of daycare, but I got to look forward to phone in college.
Just start saving.
Yeah.
For it now. But yeah, so it was just kind of a, for me it was like, well, there's some comments out in chat. Mike says, or Alex says, Mike, could you create a shortcut automation that would disable the always on display at certain locations, or only turn it on if you have it connected to certain Wi-Fi networks.
That's a really good idea. I would actually like that because the always on display, I use it the most when I'm like sitting at my desk at work or at home. Like when I'm out and about, I don't need it to be always on. That's a great idea. Especially the Wi-Fi network one, I like that. If I'm connected to work
Yeah.
Wi-Fi, I am going to check into that after this. I
The
don't know.
automations have
I'm sure
gotten
you
really
can.
good.
Oh, I
Gotten
love the
really good on the
shortcuts.
phone.
Yeah, it's been great.
Brian says I'm running a 13 mini, love it, and all the battery capacity isn't great. I'm always near power if I need to plug it in. I'm leaning towards the keeping one more year before upgrading to the 16. And then Alex comes back. They were and are doing big pushes to switch everyone to the 5G plan.
Yeah.
Okay, what about the watch? So I'm on a 4. I think they're on 8, right? At this point?
Yes.
8 or 9, right?
Yep.
What do you have?
It's a great question. I have a 7.
Okay.
I have a 7. I love my 7. I think Hannah has an 8 because her old one broke, so we had to get her a new one. Not too much crazy difference between the two. I think the new news in the watch is: would you want to go, if you're just going to go all out and go baller? Do you go watch Ultra? So they just came out with the Ultra that just came out this last year. It's beefier, it's chunkier. It can be a dive watch, right? And for like skiing, if you're doing a lot of outdoor activity. I think, don't quote me on this one, but I think that one. So the other thing I didn't talk about with the iPhone 14 was that it can connect to satellite for an emergency call. So say you're in an area with no cell service and you need an emergency, it can use satellite. I think the same thing applies to the Watch Ultra. And I kind of like the look of it. I've only seen it in the wild one time when my bosses has it. It does look pretty cool. It's chunkier. I kind of like the look of it. But besides that, on the watch, I think it depends on the size you want. And, the SE is also a great model too. So I think that's something to consider is, do you need to go to the 8 or are you okay with the SE? Because there's a pretty big price jump. I think it's about $200 difference between those two on the cellular versions of them. Okay. So you might find that I think the difference mainly is the always on display with the Series 8, which on a watch, I love the always on display. Like that has been a game changer, having the always on display on the watch.
Are you wearing it in bed? Are you wearing your watch to bed or you take it off?
I'm not. I take it off. I've been wanting to get into sleep tracking. I've tried it multiple times and I just hate it. So I'm like, well, a lot of my friends are into the Whoop. I don't know if you've heard of the Whoop bands. They're like the fitness track. It's a totally different style. Yeah, right. It's not a watch at all. It's a very skinny band.
Right.
If I had something like that, I might wear it to bed, but I don't. So
Aura may be a better choice for sleep for the Ring, where you put the ring on and it or a Fitbit or whatever, the equivalent where it's just a super light. I thought of that, of having a watch, then at night you take that off and you put on the Fitbit for or whatever it is, right, for bed and for sleep tracking. But I mentioned this early on when we're talking about, I've been doing some intermittent fasting and I haven't weighed myself once because it drives me like I get so obsessed about it that it does something weird to me and I stop doing it because I weird out about it. And I was kind of like, I think this time I'm just going to let it be and not measure my weight. Like just measure how I feel. That's what's really the most important thing. The thing is kind of that way with sleep too, where it's like, I got my watch on, I'm going to sleep. I'm thinking, I wonder what my watch is going to say in the morning. Right.
Yeah.
And I've got it set, at 10 o'clock, it shuts itself off, right? Goes in that sleep mode. It's all set and ready to go. It's not going to wake me up like it used to, where I'd, turn over and the thing would come on, brighten it up, right? Whatever. But I'm just finding the more stats that I track, the worse it is for me, which it shouldn't be that way, right? It should be the other way, but I just get obsessed about the stats. The glass is actually really scratched on this now. So I've scratched it. I've worn it outside working on stuff and whatever. And it's not scratched like bad, like I can't see, but it is definitely scratched.
Yeah.
And I what it sounds like, there's been some new things, some new features that have come on 6, 7, and 8. That would be super cool. But I kind of got this feeling like, I spent $400 on it. I should probably just wait till it breaks, right? till it stops
Yeah, if you're
working.
not missing, because like the only really things I think you're missing out on are like ECG, blood oxygen, like some of those sensors, which are kind
Yeah.
of cool.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
so
yeah.
those
Yeah.
sensors I think are kind of and that's even the big thing between the SE and the 8, like because the SE doesn't have blood oxygen and ECG, the 8 does. So it would be one of those if it was scratched to the point where you didn't want to do it, but you didn't want to spend all the money on the 8, I would go SE. If you're
Okay.
like,
Okay.
but if what you're waiting for is like, well, I kind of want to upgrade to get the sensors, then you should just go all the way to the 8.
What's the next release
That's a
cycle for the
great
watches?
point.
Do
I
you
think
know?
they always announce them at the same time as the phones, but I could be wrong on that.
Okay.
So they might be coming
So
out with
it would
a
be it would be coming up. We bought during COVID, we did buy one of the finger blood oxygen sensors that does pulse and blood oxygen, just because people were talking about it with COVID, and they're like $20, right?
yeah.
And so we go in these cycles. We play games during dinner where we pull out that thing and everybody has to measure, and then the loser has to clear the table. Whoever has the lowest. So everybody's like
That's fun.
trying to trying to pump up their
Well,
blood
there you go. You wouldn't
oxygen
have to put the
level.
finger thing on, just do the
No, it's
watch.
super.
But
Yeah, it's actually super fun. Well, okay.
well, and on the data thing too, the one thing I was going to mention is I put a big focus, and I did this with my home server, anything data driven. I kind of started going to Mike, be focused more on the macro level, right? Like focused more on big picture. Don't be checking this on a day-to-day basis. Wait to show trends. Like trends is really what I like to see. And we talked about it earlier on the show, like that announcement I got from my watch about my resting heart rate being down over the last 5 days as compared to before. Like that was really cool. That's the type of stuff I like. And I almost forgot that this thing is tracking my heartbeat 24/7, and I wear my watch except for when I'm sleeping 24/7. So I think, if you kind of just got in the mode of like, okay, I'm not even going to look at it. Like, I don't open the health app ever unless it gives me notification of some really cool metric that changed, right? Like, oh, hey, this is on average is different than it was, right?
Yeah.
That's when I open it. I have never opened the health app otherwise, which is
Yeah.
kind of nice. But I do track my workouts, right, with the watch. But again, I'm not too focused on it. Just I wanted to know that I was working out, track it accurately, and then from there, just be more worried about trends.
Yeah, I think the big trends. I think you're right. I
Yeah.
I had been, every time I have trouble sleeping, I go back and say, okay, what's the last 6 months been like? And that's available on my phone, even without wearing the watch. The phone's kind of got going to sleep, waking up like numbers close
Yeah.
enough.
Yep.
They're not exact, but they're close enough, right? And I did see, during the early pandemic months, so like March of 2020 through like September of 2020, I was getting like 4 or 5 hours of sleep at night regularly, right? Which was not good. And that you could see it go from 5 to 6 and from 6 to 7. And then I could tell I was doing okay. Eight's a good, I was starting to see some 7 and 8s in there. And you're like, okay, I'm back on track, right? So I
Yeah.
think it is good to watch that. Alex asked you a question. He says, any burn-in issues with the always-on display? I had to replace my Series 1 due to a burn-in and the display being unreadable in bright light.
Interesting. No, works great. I've
Okay.
no burn-in issues at all. I think they must have gotten that worked out before they
No,
added
I
in.
don't. I
And
haven't
I'm
seen that
assuming that they must have worked on something
before.
because how long had Android done on the phones? Always on displays,
Right, right.
right? And iPhone just added that this year. So I think they must have worked on it because I don't have burn-in issues on the phone or the watch, and both of those now are always on displays for me.
Couple months ago, well, maybe more, 6 months ago, I think you were on when we talked about Microsoft Translator. Were you on the show when we talked
I
about
know we've
that?
talked about that when I've been on the show. I don't know when it was.
So a bit back in the past, and it was a web app that I could log into, and then I did some trickery on my computers to feed the audio back around,
Yeah,
and so
for your
it
podcasts that
for
are
the
so at least you could
podcast.
follow along with what they're saying in rough terms, right? You
Yeah,
could kind of
so
yeah.
we do now 7 different languages. We do Podcasting Gallup in 7 different languages, and so I would route that audio back around, and then I could read. I would put it in the language, Portuguese or Chinese or whatever. I put the translator in that language, and then I could use the code Microsoft.com/translator/, and then they give me a 5-digit identifier. And you could follow along, right? It was super great. Well, Microsoft deprecated the web app for it. Like they've been saying for the last, I don't know, 6 months, "Hey, this is going away. This is going away." The other day I logged in, it had gone away,
It's
right? And I was like, "Oh, they
They
you know,
actually did it.
part of me wonders sometimes with Microsoft, like, are they really going to do that? Like, is it really
Right.
going to happen? Right. Type thing. So I kept wondering, like, what, okay, that'll come up here in just a second. So they said, hey, we've moved. We now have an iPhone, an Android, and a Windows app for you. If this is what you want. Oh, okay. Well, it's the same. In a lot of ways, it's the same way. It's harder for me to get the Windows app and on at work because I got to get it approved and whatever. It's much easier. So
Yeah.
I've been trying to figure out this way to get it on my phone. And I actually ordered some components from Amazon, some new stuff to plug into my phone, and then I would plug the microphone into the dongle, and hoping it would feed the audio in. I couldn't get any of them to work. What I did find would work is this dongle, which is an old Plantronics USB sound card, which these things, like, nobody knows what these are because
No.
right, you can buy USB sound cards, plug them into a USB port. It's got, I'm showing in the picture here. If you're seeing the audio, sorry about that, or listening to the audio. It's got a headphone jack and a microphone in it,
Hmm.
right? It's a sound card, basically in a USB. Plantronics made it for their really old headsets where they had, the plugins, the round
Yeah.
plugins, and then you could plug it in, and it would bridge the gap in the days before all those USB components came out, right? Well, if you take the camera kit that comes
Oh,
with
it's
it, lightning
genius.
to camera, and you plug that in, right? Then you have this dongle, right? Then you plug you come out of your speakers on the computer, plug into the microphone here, and the phone has no idea it's coming. It thinks it's hearing it through
A
through a
microphone or
microphone
whatever.
or
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Then you just feed that into the phone. So I was like, this should work, and it did. So I give the code. So now I can start it on my phone. Just set that aside. It can be anywhere, right? And log in with that number and put it in English, and boom, I got the translation. So then when we were done with it, I picked up the phone and it was warm. And I'm like, oh, this is why Microsoft deprecated the web app. They didn't want to pay for the processing bill of running all that, right? Think about
Yeah.
all the transactions that had to happen, or all the processing that had to happen to translate that, to run it and then translate it into 60 different languages, right? Or
Yes.
whatever's
Yeah.
going on. When they moved it downstream to the app, guess who does that?
Your phone.
This guy.
It's
This guy.
secure, Jim. It's all being done locally.
Yeah.
That's I'm sure that's how they sold it, right? More
Oh, for
secure. It never
sure.
leaves your phone. Your
Yeah.
phone's doing all of it. Yeah, there you
Yeah.
go. Just
No,
shift the
Mike, for
processing bill to
sure.
you.
Yeah. This guy.
Yeah.
Now, this is what got me thinking about the new phone, because
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay. Well, the 12's it's A15 on the 12 on the of
Uh,
A14 processor. And then
I
I
have to
think
look.
I think the 13 and 14 are the A15 processor that's on
And
there, I
the
think.
A16 for the Pro.
Okay. Okay. So, but it just got me thinking, like, since I just bought a new computer, new GPU, some of those kinds of things. In theory, I haven't checked this on Windows. I might be better off at home doing this on now this new gaming build that I built. Like, run the app. I need to download it. I need to download the app, run it, get the stuff going, and just kind of see. That gaming rig may actually make a really good translator on this thing, right?
Yeah.
Um, but it got me thinking on the phone, like, okay, so the 13 and 14 have that end processor on there that does some, it's kind of built for this. It's kind of, some ways, it's kind of the GPU
Yeah, it's
processing
like tensor
phone.
cores for the
Yeah,
phone. Yeah.
yeah. And I thought, well, I don't know if Microsoft's taking advantage of them, but now might be a good time. I'm going to do this more. But how cool it would be, then I could just take my phone, plug it in. What I would probably upgrade this to is the camera kit that has the well, now back to our phone conversation. The camera kit that has the lightning connector, so I could charge the phone
Oh, got it.
and
Wow.
run, right,
Smart.
because
Yeah.
it's pretty intense. Now, I ran it for an hour. I've had my 12 for 2 years. I ran it for an hour and some change, and maybe 20% battery life, like,
Okay.
over that hour, right? Definitely some, but it's not like it killed it, right?
Right. That's pretty good.
Yeah, so I've got some thoughts. I mean, I've got some things to kind of think about in that realm. Certainly, what was interesting is I bought a TRRS cable, so that's the one that's got the 3 rings, 2 for stereo speakers, 1 for the microphone. I bought the dongle, the iPhone dongle that had the lightning port and a TRRS port on the other side that's supposed to work for the phone.
Yeah.
Couldn't make those work for
And I
whatever
think
reason.
iPhone's weird on their TRRS because they're expecting the Apple headset, and I think the sum of the rings on the one of the R's in TRRS I think is swapped on the Apple headset. I
That would
think,
make sense.
yeah,
That
because
would
I
make
know like I
sense.
use that adapter for I have the Rode wireless microphones, which are fantastic. I think I talked about on the show
Yeah.
years ago.
Oh, yeah,
Best
yeah,
thing
yeah,
ever.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
You have to buy a special cord if you're using the iPhone as compared to any other like
Ah,
the TRRS that it uses for a DSLR camera
yeah.
is different than the cable you would buy for the iPhone.
Okay.
So if I remember right now, that might not be the case anymore, but
Well, here's the deal. I can find these for like $3. These little USB sound cards,
yeah,
basically, all they are. I mean, and so is and now I know the camera kit, the camera, it's got the little picture of the camera on the dongle. Okay, those are like $14 to get a dongle that's got a camera and a US and a lightning on it.
yeah,
And I could be running that this way with an extra cord. Carry these around. You could get a couple. They're super cheap. This is one of those things where I might just buy a couple of them, have one at the studio, have one here,
that's
not
smart.
carry them around because
Yeah.
it's not hundreds of dollars. I did, Mike. This did get me thinking. Maybe in the studio, I'd put in an iPad or I'd put in an iPad Mini to run this. They do have the upgraded processor. They're a little bit bigger. Battery life's a little bit better. It could be a dedicated unit. It would be easier to see when I'm sitting in the studio. Then I realized, well, I'm not really looking at the translated words. I just need the iPhone to be the processor, right? I'm not looking.
Oh, you're not looking at those
No,
during
I'm
the
not
show.
looking.
Okay.
No, I've got a web page. I've got a browser window open, seeing the translation back into English.
Got
If
it.
I'm looking on the phone, it's Arabic or it's Portuguese or it's Chinese or it's Japanese or whatever. So I was like, yeah, no, I don't need to drop. I mean, I could get a pretty good iPad mini for $400. Not terribly expensive, right? Compared to the phones.
Yeah.
But I was like, no, my phone actually be good enough. I can plug the phone in. So I think the solution will be get a couple dongles the way I want them, have one in the studio, one here. And then the phone is just going to be the translation device. And whenever I'm doing that, I'll plug in. I do need to test I will, before I do all that, I will test the app on Windows to see. I might not even need those here. I could probably just run that off the gaming rig here and make it
Yeah.
work. And that PC would have no problem with the Ryzen 5, with the
No.
3060. It should be just fine.
Be
Doing
buttery
those kinds
smooth.
of things. Yeah.
Yeah. That's interesting. So tangentially related to the tensor core part that you were talking about, have
Mhm.
you heard about the NVIDIA super resolution, this RTX super resolution that they just released with
Mm-mm.
their latest
Mm-mm.
drivers?
Mm-mm.
So you got me curious. So you were talking about kind of the different parts of these GPUs are being used for different processing. Linus Tech Tips, it's a good video to watch if you guys haven't watched this, but just to know, if you guys have a 30 series card or higher, essentially what NVIDIA did was they said, okay, what we can do is we can actually take in, it works in, I think, Chrome and Edge currently. So if you're watching a video in Chrome or Edge, they will upscale the video you're watching and the way they're doing it. So essentially you could take like a 720 video, a 1080p video and scale it up to 4K. And Linus was kind of he was watching both, and he sometimes even liked the super resolution upscaled better than just raw 4K. But this is very kind of, it's interesting because you think about it, he put it in terms of kind of interesting. So Netflix charges extra for their 4K. So if you're watching Netflix on your computer, you could watch it in 1080p. And then this new feature that was just released, it's called, if you go into the NVIDIA panel, if you've upgraded the latest drivers, it's called RTX Video Enhancement. And you turn on super resolution and it can process then, and it uses those same cores that you were talking about on the GPU. That's why it's 30 series and above, because it has those cores to essentially make this video from 1080p up to 4K. And it does it with pretty good quality and in pretty good resolution. So it was just an interesting kind of side tangent. But they use the Netflix example of, well, why pay for the 4K? You can do 1080p and make it look like 4K, which is kind of interesting. Or, you think about people who are bandwidth limited, right? If you're looking, if you're, in an area where you can only pull down enough bandwidth to get a 720 stream, well, doesn't matter anymore. You can make it look like a 4K stream. So kind of interesting, something to play around with.
Yeah. Well, I was just, before I had this thought on this, and by the way, Joe says you can't watch right now.
Linus got hacked. Their channel is no longer on YouTube.
Wow.
One of the biggest tech channels on YouTube. So I'm sure
they're working. The YouTube channel got hacked.
So essentially this morning, all of a sudden their logo changed to Tesla, and it was a crypto scam. So a crypto company took over, and they started a live stream of like that fake Elon Musk talking about crypto, trying to get people to donate crypto. So they essentially had gotten hacked. It's a comment. There's actually a pretty good video. I don't know if I'll be able to find the link, but explaining why and how this is happening to YouTubers. It's coming through sponsors. So they work with these sponsors all the time. Well, those sponsors have them test things, and these people will pretend to work for a company that they know, like Linus works with, and you'll get them to download a GitHub. Hey, this is the beta version. We want you to test the beta version. And it essentially puts them into a back door and allows them to control the actual computer. So 2FA becomes not really a factor because they're not logging into that account now remotely. They're actually on the machine.
Wow.
And so they're getting into YouTube accounts that way.
Well, I guess you need to have a completely isolated, if you're going to do that kind of stuff now, you're going to have a completely isolated.
Yeah. Like only this one computer can access our YouTube account. Yeah. It's
completely
wild.
Separate network. Now, the good news is it's never been cheaper to have just a second network, network, right?
Yeah.
But it can be average. It doesn't need to be top.
The problem is it needs internet access.
Well, you just have a second.
Yeah.
You just have a cheap second internet, whatever.
That's the one that plugs in, and everyone else doesn't get access.
It's $50 on T-Mobile. Just have a T-Mobile one for $50 or whatever, right? Cox, I think, still has a $25 one that if you push them hard enough, they'll give it to you. It's not very good, but it's the minimum, right? You're not going to be on it all the time. I'm going to make a good backup.
I love that use case though for the translation. I always thought that use case for translation was a very cool use for software like that.
Yeah.
Right. Your podcaster is a perfect use case, because the only other one that everyone thinks about is, I'm in a foreign country and I'm having a conversation with someone and we're holding our phone up and it's listening to both of us. This is a more real world, how it could be used every single day. So figuring out the processing and where you're doing it, that's interesting.
Zoom breaks that a little bit because they require, on corporate accounts, they're really good. If you're on one PC and you log into another, it logs you off of the other PC. So I would need to figure out how to have 2 Zoom accounts to make this work, because I guess I could do it on the Mac and use Audio Hijack.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you could split out the audio in 2 different ways.
That around. Yeah. The app it's not available on the Mac. So it's available on the phone. It's available on Android, and it's available on Windows. So I couldn't run it on my M1, but I guess I could do some trickery. It doesn't matter. I've got this really beefy gaming rig that I haven't really been using, that you're kind of like, oh, well, I should probably be using it for translations in the studios and making that kind of work. That would fit the bill of that really, really well and do a nice job of doing the translations. Definitely. So super cool. Mike, anything else before we wrap it up? Anything else that any other gadgets or anything you're working on? How's the ham radio in town? You still doing ham? Is it still out there?
Not as much at home. No, actually. And so we're finishing that half of the basement. That's why you guys noticed the mess behind me and where all my cords came in. So I actually took it down for a little bit for inside the house. I'm going to figure out where to put it. And then when it warms back up, still doing my parks on the air, going mobile. No, really only 2 other things I was going to mention, and now I'll mention them really quick. So for those of you guys who use TDAR, TDARR, to transcode your video files, especially from H.264 to 265, and to do it automatically. Essentially, people are using that. Hey, this is my watch folder. If any movies in there or any files in there, if anything comes into that folder, just go ahead and transcode it to H.265. I will mention, if you're on Unraid, I switched over to Unmanic, just Unmanic, and it's a pretty clean interface. TDAR is super customizable, and you can really get in the nitty gritty. But if you're more of the average guy, right, wanting to do this, and if you have been looking for a solution to transcode a massive library over to 265, give Unmanic a try. I switched over, and now I just use that exclusively. I no longer use TDAR. So just a little tidbit there. I'd always seen people talk about it, but I never really pulled the trigger. So I was running both for a little bit to test, and it's been doing fantastic and much, I think, a lot cleaner and easier to install. So that's one thing. The other thing I was going to mention was after the whole LastPass debacle that, they got breached again, and the way they handled it was absolutely awful. I did, I think way back in the day, I talked to you guys about running Bitwarden. I came back over, fired back up my self-hosted Bitwarden, and man, Bitwarden has just continued to impress. They continue to run great updates. Their way that you can actually manage your your two-factor, you can actually run that through Bitwarden as well. Now, we can have a big long conversation about having all your stuff in one place. Is that truly two-factor? But I kind of think of it as, because you'd have to have my phone and the password to my Bitwarden in my face, or a device that has my Bitwarden on it. But their ability to do that, and even just simple conveniences, Jim, like when I log into an app and I click my Bitwarden and say fill in my password, it automatically, if it has a third-party token, it puts that in the clipboard, so that on the next screen when it asks for my third party, I just paste. So it's click and then paste again, and you've got it all. And just having that all self-hosted again is really nice. I know it's on my server. If you are doing this just for yourself, I would say don't even open that up to the internet. Just run Tailscale. I know I've talked about Tailscale on a previous show. Use a VPN, and then there's really no way anyone from outside would have access to your server. But that leads into just my final point on these new things I'm playing with. So back on Bitwarden, back to self-hosting it. Absolutely love it. I actually, I used to run a reverse proxy for a lot of the self-hosted things I did, right? You run an Nginx reverse proxy. Well, that opens up a port on your network that people can funnel into. And essentially, if you guys aren't familiar with reverse proxies, if you want a URL, so let's say I have Wieger.com and I want to get to my Bitwarden, I might do bitwarden.wieger.com, and I need that to flow in to my network somehow to get in to actually get to Bitwarden. You can do a reverse proxy on your network, right? And run Nginx. What kind of took the internet by storm, especially YouTube, if you are on YouTube, is Cloudflare tunnels. So Cloudflare tunnels is essentially a way that you can avoid having a reverse proxy and opening up those ports locally. And the way it works is essentially you run all your DNS for your domain through Cloudflare, and then you run a small little Docker container on your network somewhere, and it brokers a connection with Cloudflare. So I go onto Cloudflare and I say, I'm actually plugging in my local IP address. I'm saying I'm going to set up, using the example before, bitwarden.wieger.com, that goes to 192.168. What, and it's just funneling that through, and it's connecting back to that tiny little Docker container that's running in. So it's making that connection without opening a port. And it also, obviously, then the IP address is hidden from anyone who hits bitwarden.wieger.com and they're pinging it and they're looking at the IP address. They're not getting, my home's private IP address, which is kind of nice. You are putting at that point all your trust in Cloudflare. That's been my one thing on this, is like, well, at that point, Cloudflare has a tunnel into my network. Like, I have to trust them a lot. Cloudflare is used for, I can't remember what percentage, a large percentage of the internet, right, of the traffic runs through Cloudflare. I'm pretty trusting of them. So I'm not as worried about it, but it's a really nice replacement for a reverse proxy. So if you run things behind that you do need to poke holes in, but everything else, I've actually been on a trend of just running through Tailscale. I used to use a reverse proxy for Home Assistant and for my security system for Blue Iris. I just run Tailscale now. That's really the only things I put through the Cloudflare tunnel really are things that I want to be able to access at work from my work computer, because I can't put Tailscale on my work computer. So I did have to give up being able to check my security cameras from my work laptop at work, but that's fine. I just do it from my phone. So Bitwarden, obviously, I do have on my work machine, and I do want that to be able to go. So I run that through the tunnel, but everything else I've just been keeping private and running the VPN all the time. And Tailscale just makes that so freaking easy. So those were just three of the kind of the nerdy things that I've been running updates on and my nerdy life, which I don't have much time for honestly anymore.
No, you're a dad. You're a dad of kids. You're a busy guy. No, it's some good stuff. I've kind of decided I'm not going to do any proxy stuff. I'm going to host it somewhere, or I'm going to buy their hosting to do it. And I started moving my passwords, and then I thought, I'm just going to write these down in my passport. Right? So I got my passport out here. There's plenty of space in it to write on it. So I'm just writing my.
Are you joking?
Yeah, I'm joking.
Okay, I couldn't tell for a quick second there. I was really concerned for about half a second.
I got these pages.
I got these pages. They're blank. So now I just carry my password everywhere. And I put all my passwords, my social security number.
Isn't that what your passport's for?
Yeah.
Isn't that what you're supposed to? It's secure,
exactly
right? Yeah. It's got stickers
my crypto
on
keys
it.
are in there,
and all those things. No, actually, I have my passport out because I'm applying for a new one. It expired, so I need to go. I need to apply for a new one. But yeah, here. So, but let's just talk about Bitwarden really quick.
Yeah.
Like everybody's moved to it.
Yep.
Like I have not heard one person say, "Oh yeah, I'm going to fill in the blank." Right now, that doesn't mean people don't, but I think 99% of everybody just like screw it. I'm going to Bitwarden. Listen, I get it's open source. I get all that stuff, but that
Yeah.
doesn't mean it's not vulnerable. Like, like who knows what we don't know with it. And I'm
Yeah.
just afraid, Mike, at some point we're going to hear like, oh yeah, some open source developer had some keys to something and that left a vulnerability open and nobody knew about it and it was in there and we didn't see it and it was, whatever. No, I'm just afraid for that, right?
Yeah.
You know,
I think what it comes down to is overall the idea of storing all your passwords in one place is not really a good idea anyway,
it's
right?
generally a bad
Like,
idea.
so
Yeah,
it's generally a bad idea,
yeah,
but
yeah.
it's the trend we're going down, and
Yeah,
we're trying to solve that. And we're trying to get to a
right.
passwordless. I mean, this is
Yes.
a whole nother
That'd
show,
be
right?
no, it'd be
We're
great.
trying to get to that, but if you do have to trust someone, I think it's Bitwarden's track record for being very transparent,
Yeah.
and the open source nature allows all the I think the reason it got moved to was because, hey, we can audit the code on our own. And
Yeah.
I mean, so
Well,
those
but
trends around
LastPass
open source.
problem wasn't code. There was a weak spot in the person who
Yeah.
was running, right. I mean, I think we all now know that they are running a version of Plex that allowed an old unpatched version of Plex. I mean, they were definitely targeted and they were allowed to come in and they got the keys to the S3 bucket. It wasn't LastPass's code that was a problem. It was LastPass's security, and they definitely didn't handle
Well, I
that.
think it was the code, the way that the passwords were stored, though, because they got our
Well,
master
yeah.
passwords, which they shouldn't have
Yeah.
had.
Well, but you can
Yeah.
like anything, they got the password to the bucket.
Yeah.
And once you've got the bucket, you have a lot of things, right? And
Yeah.
I'm not a security expert, but from everything I've heard from that, again, it's just one of those things where it wasn't necessarily a code problem. It was a person problem. And I just hope Bitwarden doesn't have people problems where there's, one of four people who's got the keys to the kingdom who gets targeted, which
Yeah.
is what was LastPass's
Right.
problem.
And I guess that goes back to my point of like the people problem though is a people problem. You have that everywhere. No matter what password manager
Yeah.
you use,
No,
there's always
right
a
on.
risk with
No,
people.
that's but
So if we're gonna
yeah,
trust someone, maybe trust the people who have had the best track record of being transparent about it.
yeah,
And having the open source added to it where, okay, at least because with the other ones, you have people and you can't audit the code.
yeah,
Right. Or you're trusting SOC reports, that maybe they do or don't share.
right.
Bitwarden actually shares the full SOC reports and everything that they're doing, which is pretty cool.
It's
Plus
more
being open.
transparent for sure.
Yeah. So I think it's like one of
Right.
those,
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
pick
No,
your
right on.
poison. And if you're going to go with
Yeah.
one, like go choose the least
I'm not
vulnerable.
defending LastPass.
Yeah.
Trust me. I mean, they were a sponsor, right, for the show for a lot
Yeah.
of years, but I'm not defending them. They did a lot of things wrong, and
It was
there's a
the way
lot
they
of things.
handled the whole thing
Yeah,
too.
no, for
Right.
sure.
Like, yeah, not
Yeah.
being upfront
No.
with what happened.
For
And
sure. Well, and there was some, I mean, there were some problems. Christian came on and was talking about it, and there was some for folks who'd been on the platform a long time, the iteration, I forget what that's called, hadn't got set higher for some of those. And so they're very vulnerable at this point, right? Brute force attacks, pretty easy at that point, right? I
yeah.
went in and checked, I had a pretty high number. I'm like, well, okay. I'm still moving. I am still changing passwords on everything. I mean, I'm still kind of going through. I moved all the high priority ones over and I've got those taken care of. I still have a bunch that are, they're accounts I use from time to time on things. And I'm tempted, like, do I because my methodology was 2 browsers, 1 Bitwarden, 1 LastPass. Sign into the account, grab the info, sign in over here, put it in, change the password at the time I'm moving it, right?
Yeah.
Right at that time. Double check it. That takes a while when you have 400 passwords, you know?
Yeah. Takes a
Some
long
people
time.
exported it, imported, and then change, and I was like, "No, I'll never get that done. I'll blow it off, and then those passwords will never get changed." So I got the
Yeah.
banking and all that other stuff moved over, right? But yeah, well, that's one of those things, Mike. I just think it's awesome till it's not,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
That's
you
true.
know?
I mean,
Yeah.
every company goes
Yeah,
through that.
Gallup likes KeyPass because it's local, right? And it's not as convenient because it's local, but it's local.
Yeah.
It's not somewhere where somebody can get it.
Right.
No,
And that's what I love about
unless they
Self-Hosted
get it.
Bitwarden, right? Like if someone messes up, that people that's going to mess up and give keys to the kingdom
Is
me.
you?
Yeah, because it's stored over there in that box
No,
and
right
nowhere
on,
else, right?
right
Like
on.
if
Yeah.
Bitwarden can get hacked and doesn't affect me, right? Because that's on this box over here.
Very
So,
true.
yeah,
very true. Very true.
and I'm fine with taking accountability
Yeah.
for
I just wish
because
we
I
would
will mess up. But
hurry up. I know I'll mess up for sure. That's why
yeah,
I trust somebody else to get it done. We got to get to this passwordless thing here pretty
we
quick.
do. We really do.
Yeah, we really do.
Yep.
It's just terrible. Well, Mike, thanks for coming out. We'll get you back
Yeah.
here in the summer, and
Yep.
I need to get out your way a little more often and enjoy a brew and
Brew a little cigar or
sit
something,
on that back patio. Yeah,
Yeah.
no,
Let's
for
wait till
sure.
after May so I can enjoy a brew with you.
Can you hang tight? Yeah, for sure. Can
Yeah.
you hang tight for just a sec?
I can. Yep.
Couple reminders. One, join us in the Discord group, and Mike is out there, although he's super busy. But join us in the Discord
Yeah. Sorry,
group.
guys.
No, that's right. theaverageguy.tv/Discord. I think there had actually been a comment in Discord about like on the Unraid channel. Somebody had to unsubscribe because for a while there was so much conversation that you were working on an Unraid, and they even made a comment. They were like, "Yeah, since Mike stopped posting here, I haven't looked
It's
at it in a
crickets
while."
now. Yeah.
Leave us a message, homegadgetgeeks.com, and hit the button, the microphone button. You can leave a audio message that way. Just email me, jim@theaverageguy.tv, after you do that, so I know that you've done it, because I don't always check that account from time to time. It'd be good to know. Neil sends me notes. Neil, thanks for always your comments. He also he just sent me an email I got a little bit earlier today, and he said he's making the jump to Bitwarden too. So Neil, appreciate your emails. Don't forget theaverageguy.tv, both web platform and media hosting, all powered by Maple Grove Partners. I mean, if you want secure, reliable, high-speed hosting from those that you know and trust, check out Maple Grove Partners. Plans start as little as $10 a month, maplegrovepartners.com. And don't forget that, Mike, during this, I've been intermittent fasting again, but we are still crushing the HelloFresh. I just can't. Every time I think about getting rid of it, I cry a little bit inside. Like, I'm like, no, it's so great. If they now save as much as $110 on your first 5 box. They're throwing big money at this. If you haven't tried it yet, give it a try. $40 off your first box alone. Give it a try. If you haven't tried it yet, and then you can quit it. If you don't like it, you can quit it. But we've really liked it. Check it out. theaverageguy.tv/HelloFresh. And you don't even need to contact me. Everything you need is there. theaverageguy.tv/HelloFresh. We are live every Thursday, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern, out here at theaverageguy.tv/live. Aaron Lawrence will be back with us next week with all kinds of gadgetry. She's been doing some great work and has got a lot of great stuff going on. If you haven't been following her on YouTube, you absolutely, hopefully her account won't get hacked. We'll have to talk about that. Say, Aaron, you're going to need to be careful on any beta products that you get, right?
Yeah.
I need to fill in a week, but then Brian Friedlander, a name you probably haven't heard in a while. Brian joined us about 4 or 5 years ago. Assistive tech. So he works in this area of where for individuals who need help with technology, and not like help figuring it out, but I mean have disabilities or things like that, learning disabilities. He's in that space. He's going to be joining us here in a couple weeks. And then Mark Robson's back. We're talking barbecue. And Mike, are you still getting your grill? Are you getting your smoker? Did you do much during the winter?
I did nothing during the winter. I'm getting it back out for the spring.
All right. All right. I lifted my grill up the other day, and it's so old. The 2 front brackets have like rusted out.
Rusted through.
And they're like, the hinge was like wrinkle. Like, oh,
time for a smoker.
I've had that. No, I remember I bought. Well,
that's right.
I bought that one. So,
yep.
But there's times I use a smoker like jerky and pork and some, when we're doing pulled pork, and then there's times I go to the grill. I still like to do like chicken and burgers and stuff like that on the grill. I don't know, just old habits. So we'll be back. We'll be back next week with Aaron Lawrence. Come out and join us. With that, we'll say goodbye, everybody.